Hey guys, welcome back to the Play Action Pod. This is Brennan. Beside me is Brock. We hope you all had a great holiday, a great Christmas, and we get some football this week. We actually get some really good football this week. I know Oregon and North Carolina play in a couple days, as well as I think what else we got? We got
the semifinals this week. Yeah,
we got the semifinals, I believe, on the 28th. So that'll be good as well. But I know that there's another Pac-12 team that's playing.
Oh, you got Washington.
Yeah, Washington and Texas. I'm looking forward to that one as well. So, we finally get some really good football. The season is coming to an end, unfortunately. But we have something else we want to talk about today. I know that last week we had a little segment where, it stirred up some controversy as we talked about, why the 4-team college football playoff essentially ruined football. And, we threw some clips out on the socials, got some feedback from you guys. So later we'll be reacting to some of your guys' comments. But today we have a new segment, and it's going to be why the 12-team playoff will save college football playoff. We're getting the 12-team playoff in 2024-25 season now that the Rose Bowl has finally agreed to, the new terms. But, you want to kick this off for us. Why is the 12-team playoff going to save college football, Brock?
Well, first thing, and this has been my biggest critique of the 4-team model, is automatic bids. Get rewarded for winning your conference. Get rewarded for playing on, conference championship day. I know winning your conference is big and all, but having an automatic qualifier to a playoff, I think that's going to greatly improve, how everyone views kind of conference play and kind of how they view their path, to that conference championship game. Because now it makes sense to, maybe not play as hard of a non-conference schedule, which I think is okay. I know we love to see those early non-con matchups, but if it means, I'm going to see, Alabama play against USC or, Georgia play up against, Michigan more often, then I'm okay with less good non-con games for better playoff games.
Well, think about this year, the Big Ten championship, Michigan and Purdue. For Purdue, is like, you win, you get a New Year's Six bowl game, which is great. But, in 2024, Purdue's playing Michigan. Everyone's got their eyes glued to that TV because, maybe Purdue pulls it off and sneaks their way into the playoff. Same thing with the Pac-12. Utah goes out there and beats a top 4 USC team at the time, gets rewarded with the Rose Bowl. But, in a couple years, that could be a playoff bid.
Yeah. Same with, Clemson was in that same spot. We essentially had them eliminated after they lost to South Carolina, but they would still be playing for everything. So it's like, it makes conferences more important because even if, you're not the greatest team in the world, maybe you go 0-3 or 0-4 in non-conference, you just got to run the table through your conference and you're playing for a playoff bid.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good precedent to set. I think, you should be rewarded for winning your conference, and being rewarded with, a playoff bid, I think is perfect.
Yeah.
I really like that idea a lot.
And I think a couple things, I think it's going to take the pressure off of the committee a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was all in their hands. Everyone's thinking everything's biased, with 5 automatic bids, or is it 6?
5 Power 5s, and then the 6th is the G5.
So technically 6 then.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I guess the
6
6 would still come down to the committee because it'd be the highest ranked.
Yes, there's going to be 6 that are automatically qualified, and then 6 that are at-larges.
Okay, yeah. So 6. So there would be more at-larges than technically there is now, just because it's expanding to 12. But I think with the 6 automatic bids, it takes a lot of pressure off of the committee. And, it like the game plan is set out for everyone. And, you know what you got to do to make the playoff. You don't have to run the table. You just go out there, win your conference championship game, take care of business during the regular season, and you're in.
Yeah, think about it this way. If you look at this season, there's probably only about 5 to 6 teams that we thought were deserving of the playoff. And, with a 4-team model, 4 out of those 6 get in. Now let's flip it and do a 12-team model. 6 are automatically going to qualify for their conference. And there's a good chance that most of those 6 were already teams that should have made the playoff anyways because they were deserving of it. So now you get more teams into the playoff that were maybe on the border of being deserving, and then they're going to have a chance to cause some upsets and play for it all. So I think it's just great. It gets more teams into the fold that maybe weren't going to be playing for a national championship towards the end of the season, but now they have that opportunity because they were rewarded with winning their conference.
Yeah, which I think it leads into our second reason, which is, talent will disperse among all the leagues.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of balancing out the level, the playing field, because why would you, stack one conference or maybe even transition into another conference when we got teams jumping from conference to conference, example being USC and UCLA. We thought maybe they'd steal Oregon and Washington, but it's like, why would you go to the Big Ten where it's going to be more competitive when, you can kind of just chill in the Pac-12, compete for your conference championship every year and a playoff bid.
Yeah. And I think the big thing about this is the talent though. Because if you think about it, if I'm a player who's really talented and I want to play in the playoff, where am I going? I'm going to the SEC. I'm finding Georgia, I'm finding Alabama, I'm finding, even Tennessee had a good chance this year. I'm finding one of those teams, and that's where I'm setting my sights to. But now it's like, why would I not go, say, my hometown is Carolina, let's say like South Carolina. Why would I not go to, maybe like South Carolina, who hasn't really been into the opportunity of playing in the playoff? I can go play for my hometown team and still have every much of a chance to make the playoff as anybody else.
Yeah.
And that goes for, that goes for a ton of teams. That goes for teams, in the Pac-12 who haven't been there for a while. That goes for teams in the Big 12. That goes for teams in the Big 10, like Rutgers and Nebraska. I know they've kind of, struggled to kind of be, good, competent teams, but if they really can now keep talent in state to come to their school because they have every chance to play for the playoff, like, why would you not?
Yeah. And even like the ACC, you think of teams like North Carolina, Wake Forest, who, are competing for their conference championship, but aren't necessarily on that level that Clemson is, where they're, fighting for the playoff every year. Now they have the exact same chance as Clemson, every year.
Yeah. So it's going to be really good because you're going to see a lot of kids who maybe do want to play for their hometown teams, but they've been forced to kind of leave because they have, national championship aspirations.
Yeah.
So now you might see a lot of those kids, stay home and play for their hometown teams instead of, going across the country or making that move to a school that had a chance previously to get to the championship game.
Yeah. I think this next reason is probably the reason why I'm most excited is, we get to see every single conference in the playoff every single year, which I know that hasn't been a thing yet, at least with the Power 5 conferences, because, we get one excluded every single year with there being only 4 playoff spots. This year, we're seeing 2 Power 5 conferences being excluded. That being, I guess it would be the ACC and the Pac-12, correct?
Yes.
So, something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think this excites me more for more of the smaller schools. Look at schools like Tulane, for example. They're having a fantastic season, and their reward is to play in the Cotton Bowl against maybe UST's team that doesn't really want to be there and isn't really going to give them the time of day. But now, like, if you're Tulane, you win your conference, you're the highest ranked, Power 5 team. You're going to the playoff.
Yeah, group of 5, right?
Or group of 5,
Yeah.
Yes. And you're heading out to, say, I don't know, for example, say you're heading out to like Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big game for Tulane.
Yeah.
That's not only for the on-field product, but, for the money.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of money for playing in a playoff game against Ohio State.
And Ohio State is stoked to be there as well.
Yeah. It's like,
it's not like you're playing USC who, is disappointed they didn't make the playoff and they're like, oh, I don't want to be here. I'd rather be in the playoff. It's, now Ohio State is competing for that national championship as well as Tulane. So, I feel like that's a way more intriguing matchup.
Well, and think of it too, kind of back to that recruiting point. If I'm, Tulane, and I know we're using Tulane as an example because they had a really good season this year. This applies to all teams in the G5, but UCF, like all those teams. And I'm like on the recruiting trail, and I go into a kid's house. I could look at them and be like, hey, we're going to be really good this year. We're probably going to win our conference. And I think we'll be the highest rated, group of 5 team. We're going to be in the playoff. Like, do you want to come play for a team that's going to, be in the playoff?
100%.
It's like the recruiting poll is so much different because you can really recruit to these kids. If you're like a group of 5 school saying, we're going to have a good team this year. We're probably going to compete and we're probably going to win our conference. And, with that as well, we're also going to be probably the highest ranked group of 5 team, which means we'll get a playoff spot. So it's like, there's just so much more that you can do on the recruiting side of things. And it opens up so many more possibilities. And I just love that going into the season, week 1, there's going to be 131 teams in the FBS. There's going to be 131 teams competing for a national championship starting that day. Whereas that probably wasn't true, going into this year.
I'd say
there's probably I'd say all the Power 5 teams had a chance. But even then, do all the Power 5 teams have a chance? Like, probably not.
Yeah, you pretty much have to run the table.
You have to go 12-0.
And then if you're Tulane and you go 12-0, are you in with this, the modern day 14 playoff? No.
Yeah, definitely not.
Exactly. We saw it with UCF, who went undefeated a couple years ago. They didn't make it. So, like you said, 131 teams are going to be competing with the national championship. I think that this model is well overdue, just based off that statement.
No, yeah, it's like there's no reason that, and I know it's definitely money related, but there's no reason why every team shouldn't have the opportunity to compete for a national championship. So now that we're going to have that opportunity for all teams to compete for national championship, that's a huge win. Like, I don't know how you couldn't love that idea.
Yeah. And it opens up a lot more matchups. We get 11 matchups instead of just 2. Yeah. So a lot more football. What's not to be excited about that?
Yeah, we talked last episode about how the 2 most important games were playoff semifinal 1 and playoff semifinal 2. Well, now you're going to have, it's going to be 4 campus games because 4 teams are going to have a bye, 4 campus games. Then you're going to get quarterfinals, semifinals, and then, of course, the national championship game.
Which, I mean, for some teams, they haven't played in their home stadium in December ever.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a new change.
A new change. We might see some of those teams from the East Coast heading west to where it's gonna be chilly.
Well, yeah. Just think of some of the matchups that are possibilities. Like, you could get
even this year.
Yeah. You get a lot of crazy. You could get like UCLA traveling to the East Coast to play against, like, say, Wake Forest.
Oh my gosh.
Like, would they ever schedule each other?
Never.
Like, most likely not, But you get matchups like that, you could see a team like, I don't know, TCU, maybe TCU heads to, Florida and plays against like Florida State or something like that. It's just like the matchups are endless, and you're going to see a lot of matchups that you just wouldn't usually see.
Yeah.
And that's going to be down to teams winning their conference and, getting to the playoff.
Yeah. Do you think this is kind of taking away the value of bowl games? Because, if you're not making the playoff, then really who cares about your bowl game now?
I think for the Power 5, it definitely does. And, it's kind of, once you introduce the playoff, that's the battle you had to play with.
Yeah.
It's like once you introduced the semifinals, it almost made New Year's 6 bowl games irrelevant. And now that all New Year's 6 bowl games are going to be a part of the playoff, it's going to probably make those other bowl games a little bit irrelevant.
But I feel like, the 14 playoff made them irrelevant already.
Yeah. So
even the New Year's 6 games.
Yeah. So I think in terms of other bowl games, it's a step back. But I think in terms of making the New Year's 6 games important again, I think it's a step forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you have to take a step back, take a step forward. So I'm not really too worried about that. And I think most teams will be excited because if you think about it, like going down to the last couple weeks of the season, there's still going to be like 60 teams that have a chance to make the playoff and play in one of those either campus games or have a bye. So I think in the end, it is going to make some bowl games irrelevant, but I think it'll be overall kind of a good impact.
Think about how exciting conference championship week is going to be.
Yeah, it's generally going to be so much better because, think about it. This year we only had the one game with playoff implications.
Yeah.
And that was the Friday night game between Utah and USC. But now, not only are we going to get 5 with the Power 5 conferences, but we're also probably going to get like maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, think about like maybe Boise State or another team from the Mountain West.
Yeah, they could be playing in a high impact game like that. You could get, we talked a little bit about Tulane too. They could be playing in a high impact game, on conference championship week. So it's going to open so many possibilities to many games.
Games that we wouldn't necessarily be tuning into. I don't know about you, but I didn't watch more than maybe 30 minutes of the Mountain West championship game.
Yeah, and it's just because like it didn't really have any meaning. It's like winner goes to some bowl game that no one's really too hyped about.
But yeah, maybe in a couple years, the winner goes to the playoff.
Yeah, they could be packing their bags, traveling out to maybe like Tuscaloosa to play Alabama.
Unbelievable.
So it's really going to open up so many possibilities to games with a lot of teams that just wouldn't schedule each other.
Yeah.
For many different reasons.
And the on-campus games, another thing to get excited about. Just matchups we wouldn't necessarily be seeing in. We get some pretty good non-conference matchups, but that's towards the beginning of the season. Games being in December, it could be a lot different as far as weather, which I think it brings a whole new aspect to the sport.
No, yeah, it's going to be traveling, to games in late December, which most teams are kind of just practicing and just preparing for their bowl game in whatever place they're going to. But now they're going to be traveling. It's going to be basically another hostile road environment that they're going to have to prepare for.
Yeah, think about teams out west that are kind of on the rise. We think of Colorado with Deion Sanders being there. We think about Utah, who's won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. Imagine playing in Salt Lake City, Utah, or Boulder, Colorado, in early December, late December.
Yeah, it's gonna be below like 32 degrees.
Yeah.
It's gonna be snowing, and you're gonna be at altitude already, so you're gonna have a hard time breathing.
Absolutely.
Like it's gonna be brutal.
And it goes both ways. Think of a team out west that's used to that thin air, and they travel to. We went to Gainesville earlier this year.
Yeah,
and the humidity like slapped us.
Yeah, it's like you walk outside and you instantly start sweating.
Yeah,
so it's like it's gonna be interesting to see some of the matchups that we get, especially in that late December window.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's gonna wrap things up. This is why we think the 12-team playoff is going to essentially save college football. I know that we talked about the 4-team playoff and how it kind of has ruined college football. And there was a lot of controversy. We're getting some backlash there. But, this is our reasoning behind why the 12-team playoff is going to save college football.